At 30,000 feet in the air, a careless comment from Sandra started a chain reaction that would change everything. In an instant, driven by a misplaced sense of pride, she dismissed a quiet stranger whose steady gaze shattered the illusion she had worked so hard to create. In an effort to salvage her image, Sandra's impulsive choice set her on a course she couldn't reverse, leading her toward a life-altering collision with the consequences of her actions. This unfolding drama explores the raw emotions and hidden regrets of a woman unprepared for the heavy price of arrogance. As whispers ripple through the cabin and alliances shift with each passing moment, one question remains. Can Sandra regain control, or is this just the beginning of her downfall? Sandra's world began to crack the moment her condescending words echoed through the first-class cabin. A life built on privilege and control was now facing the reality of accountability. As the plane climbed higher into the sky, every soft murmur and glance from her fellow passengers served as a reminder that the air of entitlement she had carried was now under the scrutiny of someone who demanded respect. From the moment Sandra stepped onto the plane, she carried herself with an unmistakable air of superiority, a confident walk, a designer bag draped over her arm, and an unshakable belief that she was entitled to be among the privileged. But that day, fate had other plans. Sitting next to her in seat 2C was Sophie Morgan, a composed, sharply dressed woman whose quiet presence suggested a strength far beyond appearances. Sandra immediately felt a sharp pang of disdain at the sight of her and let a biting remark slip out, cutting through the air. In that instant, the cracks in Sandra's carefully constructed world began to form. Despite Sandra's insulting words, Sophie remained unfazed. Her calm, measured tone revealed a confidence that had been built on years of dedication and a strong sense of justice. As Sandra grew increasingly irritated, a low murmur from a nearby passenger mentioned Sophie's high-profile legal career. The mention of Sophie's influence deepened Sandra's discomfort. Not long after, a man in a tailored suit leaned in, quietly warning her that the woman she had insulted held power, a power capable of changing lives and toppling empires. Growing uneasy, Sandra attempted to regain control of the situation. She demanded a seat change, her voice laced with indignation, convinced she shouldn't have to sit next to someone she deemed beneath her. The flight attendant, however, calmly explained that there were no other available seats. Instead of backing down, Sandra's attempts to assert her dominance only intensified, attracting the disapproving looks of fellow travelers. With each passing minute, the tension in the air grew heavier, and Sandra's discomfort became palpable. Throughout the flight, the stakes grew higher as subtle clues emerged, suggesting the consequences of Sandra's actions were far more intricate than she had imagined. Sophie, who seemed completely absorbed in her book, exchanged a few soft-spoken words with Sandra, words about fairness, responsibility, and the unwavering nature of the law. Every word Sophie spoke felt like a judgment, as Sandra nervously sipped her champagne, trying to mask her anxiety with a feigned air of nonchalance. Her internal monologue churned with regret, attempting to rationalize the evidence mounting against her arrogance. But it was clear that things were spiraling beyond her control. Things took a sharp turn when a well-dressed man, exuding authority, entered the scene. With a composed yet direct demeanor, he informed Sandra that Sophie Morgan wasn't just any passenger. She was a judge, known for her firm stance on high-profile criminal cases. The revelation sent a shockwave through Sandra, who now realized that her actions had attracted the attention of someone who was not easily dismissed. As whispers spread like wildfire throughout the cabin, Sandra's anxiety intensified. Before she could fully process what was happening, the flight attendant returned with troubling news. Complaints about her behavior had resulted in a seat change. Stripped of her first-class privileges, Sandra was moved to a cramped seat in economy. The transition was harsh, like a fall from grace, from a world of luxury and privilege to one of shared discomfort. Around her, passengers exchanged glances, some sympathetic, others more judgmental. The confined space seemed to close in around her. Each step down the aisle was a painful reminder of the isolation her actions had caused. The plush seats and understated elegance of the first-class cabin were replaced with the harsh, plastic surroundings of the lower deck. A sense of desperation began to settle in. In a futile attempt to hold onto her image, Sandra tried to check her phone, only to discover that it had mysteriously died. The device that once connected her to a world of influence and indulgence had failed her, leaving her isolated in more ways than one. As Sandra struggled to reassert some form of control, the feeling of vulnerability only grew. It became crystal clear. Her recklessness had cost her far more than a seat. It had cost her the illusion of being untouchable. Meanwhile, Sophie's calm presence in the distant first-class cabin served as a silent reminder that true power comes from integrity, not arrogance. Amidst the quiet tension of the flight, Sandra's internal conflict reached a boiling point when a federal agent, his demeanor as composed as the cabin itself, quietly approached her. He presented a series of documents, meticulously detailing evidence of financial crimes linked to Sandra's carefully hidden world. The agent's tone was measured, his words calm but unyielding. Each fact he presented was irrefutable, proof of tax evasion, money laundering, and other illegal activities that had been carefully concealed behind Sandra's facade. The documents were part of a long investigation led by none other than Judge Sophie Morgan, and Sandra could no longer deny the truth. The agent's quiet yet stern manner made it clear. This was not just a chance encounter. It was the result of deliberate work, and now Sandra was facing the consequences. With the weight of undeniable evidence before her, Sandra found herself in a situation she never anticipated. The carefully built image of wealth, control, and influence she had relied on for years was shattered by the reality of her actions. Her world of privilege, once so carefully protected, now seemed like a fragile construct built on lies. As the flight neared its end, the tension was palpable. Each disapproving glance from passengers, each hushed whisper, served as a reminder that Sandra's fall from grace was not just inevitable, it was deserved. The real cost of unchecked pride had become clear, and Sandra was forced to face a reality that was impossible to ignore. Would this moment be a catalyst for change, a chance for growth, or would she remain shackled by her past mistakes? As the aircraft descended toward its final destination, Sandra's journey had taken her from a place of arrogance to one of painful accountability. In the aftermath, she would be left to reflect on the cost of her actions and whether she could find a way to rebuild her life with honesty and humility. If this story of personal transformation speaks to you, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support allows us to continue bringing you powerful stories of change, growth, and redemption.